Hello everyone and welcome back. Tonight we're diving into the fascinating and frankly slightly terrifying world of food policy, specifically through the lens of one of America's most prominent and, let's be honest, polarizing figures. Yes, we're talking about Robert F. Kennedy Jr., a man who looks at a grocery store aisle not as a place of nourishment, but as a minefield of corporate malfeasance and biological warfare. He's been incredibly outspoken about public health, and a huge part of his platform involves what he believes we should, and more importantly, should not, be putting into our bodies. It's a crusade against what he sees as a system designed to make us sick for profit. So, get ready to look at your pantry with a newfound sense of suspicion. Tonight, we're going to unpack the specifics. Here are 10 foods or ingredients that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has labeled poison, warned against, or said should be restricted due to health concerns. Media group, montage of 10 different foods, close-ups of controversial ingredients on kitchen table, at stock, at distribute_equally. This isn't just about a simple diet plan, it's about a fundamental worldview that sees a direct link between the contents of your shopping cart and the slow, creeping decline of Western civilization. It's a big claim, and it deserves a big look. From the oil you cook with to the snacks you give your kids, nothing is safe from his scrutiny. We'll examine his reasoning, the science he cites, and the policies he proposes. Whether you see him as a truth-teller fighting a corrupt system, or a fear-monger peddling conspiracy, his influence on the conversation around food is undeniable. So, grab a snack, preferably one not on this list, or maybe, defiantly, one that is. And let's get started. This is going to be a journey. Kicking things off at number 1, we have a category so vast it could have its own zip code: ultra-processed foods. Yes, that convenient, shrink-wrapped, shelf-stable universe that makes up, let's face it, a significant portion of the modern diet. For Kennedy, these aren't just foods, they are, and I quote, poisonous concoctions. He argues they are engineered, and engineered is the key word here, with the express purpose of being hyper-palatable, addictive, and ultimately, devastating to our health. It's not just about a few extra calories, it's about a fundamental assault on our biology. He points to these products as the primary drivers of the chronic disease epidemic. We're talking obesity, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and a whole host of autoimmune conditions that he believes are our bodies literally attacking themselves in response to these foreign chemical-laden substances. In his view, a Twinkie isn't just a snack. It's a symptom of a sick system. It represents the triumph of corporate profit over public health, a perfectly preserved sponge of industrial ingredients designed to outlive us all. His solution isn't just to eat less of it, it's to fundamentally reevaluate its very existence in our food supply. Next on the chopping block are seed oils. Now, this might seem innocuous. Canola oil, soybean oil, sunflower oil, they sound practically bucolic, like something you'd find at a farmer's market next to a woman named Brenda selling artisanal soap. But according to RFK Jr., these oils are silent killers. He claims they are a primary source of what he calls body-wide inflammation. The argument is that the industrial processing these oils undergo, involving high heat, pressure, and chemical solvents, creates an unstable, oxidized product that wreaks havoc on our cellular health once ingested. He doesn't just suggest cutting back, he advocates for their complete removal from our diets. Instead of cooking with canola or soybean oil, he recommends turning to alternatives like olive oil, coconut oil, or even good old-fashioned butter and lard. In his narrative, the widespread adoption of seed oils, pushed by massive agricultural corporations, is one of the great public health catastrophes of the last century. It's a story of supposed heart-healthy advice gone horribly wrong, leaving a trail of inflamed arteries and chronic pain in its wake. To him, your frying pan is a battleground and the choice of fat is your weapon. Artificial food dyes. The magical chemicals that make our cereal look like a unicorn's fever dream, and our sports drinks the color of antifreeze. They're vibrant, they're fun, and according to Kennedy, they are a public menace that needs to be eradicated. He has explicitly stated a plan to remove dyes like Red 40, Yellow 5, Yellow 6, and Blue 2 from the American food supply. He argues these petroleum-based colorants, which are already banned or require warning labels in many European countries, are linked to a host of problems, particularly in children. The core of his concern revolves around behavioral issues. He points to studies and anecdotal evidence suggesting a link between these dyes and hyperactivity, ADHD, and other neurobehavioral problems. Beyond that, he raises alarms about potential long-term health risks, including cancer. To him, the fact that we are adding chemicals with zero nutritional value purely for cosmetic reasons to foods marketed to children is a sign of a deeply broken regulatory system. It's a simple question for him. Why are we feeding our kids something that requires a warning label elsewhere in the world? Is a slightly brighter shade of red really worth the risk? And now, for the villain we all know and let's be honest secretly love sugar. But not just any sugar. Kennedy's crosshairs are aimed squarely at added sugar and its industrial cousin, high-fructose corn syrup. He doesn't mince words here, calling sugar poison and framing it as perhaps the single most destructive ingredient in the modern diet. He argues it's not just about empty calories, it's about a metabolic poison that directly fuels obesity, diabetes, fatty liver disease, and heart disease. It's an addictive substance, he says, that companies knowingly pump into their products to keep us coming back for more. His proposals are radical. He's not just talking about moderation, he's pushing for a goal of zero added sugar in the American diet. To get there, he advocates for much stricter labeling, making it painfully clear how much sugar has been added to a product, not just how much is naturally occurring. He wants to see limits on the amount of sugar allowed in foods, particularly those targeted at children or included in government food programs. In his view, we are in the midst of a sugar-induced public health crisis, and the only way out is a complete and total detox, enforced by the full power of the federal government. Coming in at number 5, we have the contents of your average deli counter and ballpark processed meats. We're talking about hot dogs, bacon, salami, and lunch meats. For many, these are staples of a quick sandwich or a summer barbecue. For RFK Jr., they are little more than carcinogens wrapped in plastic. His primary concern centers on the chemical preservatives used to cure them and extend their shelf life, specifically nitrates and nitrites. He argues that when these compounds are cooked at high heat, they can form nitrosamines, which are potent cancer-causing agents. He frequently points to the World Health Organization's classification of processed meat as a Group 1 carcinogen, placing it in the same category as tobacco smoke and asbestos. While the industry argues the amounts are safe, Kennedy sees this as another example of corporations and regulators downplaying serious risks for the sake of convenience and profit. It's not just the nitrates, it's the whole package of artificial preservatives, high sodium and low-quality meat that he believes contributes to a higher risk of colorectal cancer and heart disease. His advice is simple: if it comes in a tube or a vacuum-sealed pack, leave it on the shelf. Next up, the dynamic duo of dietary despair trans fats and fried junk food. Specifically, Kennedy directs his fire at staples of the American fast food landscape like potato chips and French fries. He warns that these aren't just indulgences, they are precision-engineered delivery systems for disease. The problem is twofold. First, there's the lingering issue of trans fats, which, despite being officially banned, can still hide in foods under the radar if the amount is less than 1/2 gram per serving. Kennedy sees this as a regulatory loophole big enough to drive a deep fryer through, but his bigger, more current concern is what these foods are fried in, and that brings us back to his old nemesis, seed oils. Frying potatoes in unstable, highly processed seed oils, he argues, creates a perfect storm of inflammation and oxidative stress. He links this combination directly to a litany of health issues: hypertension, clogged arteries from oxidized cholesterol, systemic inflammation, and of course diabetes. In his view, a bag of potato chips isn't a snack, it's a greasy paper sack full of chronic illness, a crunchy, salty invitation to a future of medical bills and misery. Moving on to the sweeter side of the poison list, we have what Kennedy calls sugar bombs. This isn't your garden variety sweetness, this is the shock and awe campaign of the dessert world. Think donuts, decadent milkshakes, and candy bars. He describes these items as being, well, scientifically formulated to deliver a massive, instantaneous hit of sugar and fat directly to your bloodstream. It's a biological blitzkrieg that your body is simply not equipped to handle, leading to a dramatic spike in blood sugar and a subsequent insulin surge. Kennedy warns that this constant cycle of sugar highs and crashes is, honestly, incredibly damaging. Over time, it leads to insulin resistance, the precursor to type 2 diabetes. Furthermore, he argues that the combination of high sugar and unhealthy fats is a recipe for disaster for your cardiovascular system, effectively fatting up your arteries and laying the groundwork for heart disease. To him, a frosted donut with sprinkles isn't a harmless treat, it's a weapon of mass metabolic destruction, a delicious-looking harbinger of a slow, sweet, and entirely preventable decline in health. Here we have a category dedicated to the gods of convenience and, tight budgets, instant ramen, and frozen dinners. For students, busy parents, and honestly anyone who's ever been just too tired to cook, these are total lifesavers. But for Robert F. Kennedy Jr., they're nutritional wastelands. He warns that their convenience, well, it kind of masks a sinister reality of high sodium, chemical preservatives, and questionable additives like monosodium glutamate, or MSG, which he links to a variety of adverse reactions. His main critique is that these meals provide calories devoid of actual nourishment. They're stripped of vitamins, minerals, and fiber, and instead are packed with refined carbohydrates, unhealthy fats, and a sodium content that can often exceed the entire recommended daily limit in a single serving. He sees them as a major contributor to hypertension and other health issues, especially in lower-income communities that might rely on them more heavily. In his view, these products are a perfect example of the food industry selling us cheap, easy, and ultimately empty calories that slowly erode our health from the inside out. This one might surprise you. It's a movie night staple microwave popcorn. What could possibly be wrong with that? Well, according to Kennedy, the problem isn't the corn itself, but the bag it comes in. He raises serious concerns about the chemical-lined bags used to prevent oil from seeping through. These bags are often coated with per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances, better known as PFAS, including a compound called PFOA. You might know them as forever chemicals because they just don't break down in the environment or our bodies. Kennedy points to the potential for these chemicals to leach from the bag into the popcorn during the heating process. He warns that exposure to PFOA and other PFAS has been linked to a number of health problems, including cancer, liver damage, and developmental issues. It's a hidden risk, a chemical exposure you'd never think about while settling in to watch a film. On top of the bag, he also flags the artificial flavors, especially the butter flavor, which can contain chemicals like diacetyl, linked to lung disease. For him, it's a classic case of a seemingly innocent product hiding a chemical cocktail. And finally, we arrive at our most controversial item, one that really flips the script entirely: raw milk. Unlike everything else on this list, Kennedy doesn't see this as a poison to be avoided, but as a natural, healthy food to be embraced. He is a vocal supporter of the right to consume unpasteurized milk, arguing that the pasteurization process destroys beneficial enzymes and probiotics, turning a living food into a dead one. He sides with farmers and consumers who believe raw milk offers a host of health benefits, from improved digestion to a stronger immune system. This stance, however, puts him in direct opposition to the overwhelming consensus of mainstream public health organizations. The CDC, the FDA, and countless medical experts warn that raw milk carries a significant risk of contamination with dangerous bacteria like E. coli, Salmonella, and Listeria, which can cause severe and even life-threatening illnesses. They argue that pasteurization is one of the most effective public health interventions in history. Kennedy's support for raw milk highlights a core tenet of his philosophy: a deep distrust of government health agencies and a belief that natural, unprocessed foods are inherently superior, even when they carry risks that regulators have spent a century trying to eliminate. So, there you have it, a 10-course meal of what Robert F. Kennedy Jr. considers to be the poisons on our plates. From the oils we fry in to the colors that brighten our kids' candy, his message is clear and consistent. The modern industrial food system is a clear and present danger to our nation's health. He sees a landscape where corporate profits have been prioritized over human well-being, and where regulatory agencies have become complicit in a slow-motion public health disaster. It's a stark, and for many, a compelling vision of what's gone wrong. Ultimately, RFK Jr. views many common processed foods as public health hazards and aims to overhaul federal policies, especially in school programs, nutrition guidelines, and SNAP, to reduce their consumption. His agenda is not just about personal choice, it's about systemic change. He's not just asking you to read the label, he wants to rewrite the label itself. This involves pushing for much stricter regulation, more transparent and honest labeling, and the outright removal of additives that he and his supporters deem unsafe. It's an ambitious and deeply contentious plan to remake the American diet from the top down, whether his claims are seen as vital truths, dangerous misinformation, or, something in between. They force a conversation that is undeniably important. What is the role of government in what we eat? What is the responsibility of corporations that produce our food? And what are we, as individuals, willing to accept in the trade-off between convenience and health? Kennedy has drawn his lines in the sand, or perhaps in the high-fructose corn syrup. The question now is, where do the rest of us stand? Thanks for watching.